So is the housing bubble about to burst? Are we even in a housing bubble? I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask, on who you speak to, because there's so many different opinions out there. It's hard to keep track. Got to admit, I have a hard time keeping track myself most of the time with all of the different information is out there. What I do know is that prices have been going up ridiculously fast, huge amounts in certain markets. Homes are selling for way over the list price, multiple offers, bidding wars. It's just crazy. And the consensus in which everybody's right on is this can't continue. This isn't the norm. This isn't the new norm. This is wrong. This has to stop. And I'd agree with you. Hi, this is Andrew with the Andrew Smith team at eXp Realty. And today I didn't want to try and get into the semantics of bubble speak, not bubble speak. The bottom line is there's a lot of people that want to buy a home that are having trouble. They're getting priced out. And they're not sure what's going on. And so, there's also a lot of scare tactics out there that's saying, don't buy now, don't do this, don't do that. It's way overinflated. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. And I have a problem with some of those as well because they're guessing, right? They're flat out guessing because nobody can say for certainty what's going to happen a year from now. I mean, look right before COVID came out. Could anyone have predicted that? No, they couldn't. And this is very similar. There were all kinds of videos and all kinds of reports out there right as the pandemic was taking its grip saying the housing market is doomed and it's going to crash. And it hasn't happened. According to many of those reports, it should have happened already. But let's take a look at it. It's not just housing, is it? Have you noticed how hard to come by cars are? Have you seen what used car prices have done? Have you been watching what's been going on in the prices of consumer durables? How about building supplies, windows, lumber, brick? How about pool chemicals? I mean, the list can go on. There's a lot of different things that have been going crazy. And if you happen to see other videos that I've put out and you've seen things, a few weeks ago, I put out a video talking about, well, what do the major financial institutions see with regards to housing? And in that, we looked at what the analysts at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and Merrill Lynch all had to say about housing and what they thought was going to happen going forward. And none of them are saying that what we're seeing now is actually a bubble per se. Yes, prices are going up rapidly, but there's a fundamental reason why they are. And those fundamental reasons do not constitute a bubble. So again, I don't necessarily want to just say, is it a bubble or isn't? We know prices are going up. So today I want to take a slightly different approach to it. And I've got four other experts here, four leading industry professionals and organizations that have been in the business a very long time and share what they say is going on right now and get their take on it. So, number one, the Joint Center for Housing Studies recently released their State of the Nation's Housing 2021 report. And if you follow the link, the description below to my blog, you'll actually find a link there to this related blog post that takes you directly to that housing report that the Joint Center for Housing Studies put out. So I invite you to go and take a look at that. But their comment was, conditions today are quite different than in the early 2000s, particularly in terms of credit availability. The current climb in house prices instead reflects strong demand amid tight supply, helped along by record low interest rates. That's a similar theme. We've been talking about this for a while now, that what we have is a supply problem, right? So it's not a crisis, it's a supply problem. And the record low interest rates have been adding to the demand. So that's what they have to say about it. Likewise, we've got Nathaniel Karp. He's the chief US economist at BBVA. And here's what he recently had to say. The housing market is in line with fundamentals as interest rates are attractive and incomes are high due to fiscal stimulus, making debt servicing relatively affordable and allowing buyers to qualify for larger mortgages. Underwriting standards are still strong, so there is little risk of a bubble developing. So again, now let's go back a couple weeks. One of the things that we talked about with regards to bubbles was when there's a great deal of speculation in the market, when the fundamentals, the normal fundamentals, aren't being adhered to. And I went through the market in the 2000s, right? The early 2000s, and it was different. I mean, literally, fog a mirror, sign a document, get a loan. The fact that you didn't deserve $1 million worth of mortgage didn't matter. You had to, in many cases, you didn't have to provide assets, you didn't have to provide income. There was no verification. It was highly speculative in what happened, and it created a frenzy. Everything was artificial. Today, the end user of the vast majority of homes being bought are the owner occupant. It's not investors. It's not people trying to just flip a home quickly. It's people actually living in a home. And based on COVID and what has happened from that, you've definitely seen a migrational shift with people. The high price coastal centers, right, you're seeing people move out. They're moving to southern states, Texas, Tennessee. More people going to Florida. A lot of people also are going up towards Idaho. Places like that, they can work remotely. And that is fueling a different type of migration. So people are selling in many cases in high value areas and moving to areas that are lower value, putting extra pressure, extra demand on an already tight supply, pushing prices in those markets up. Okay, so it's definitely a supply and demand issue that we have, but those fundamentals are still fairly strong. And again, Bill McBride of Calculated Risk states, it's not clear at all to me that things are going to slow down significantly in the near future. In 2005, I had a strong sense that the market would turn, and that when it turned, things would get very ugly. Today, I don't have that sense at all because all of the fundamentals are there. Demand will be high for a while because millennials need houses. Prices will keep raising for a while because inventory is so low. And I read a recent report the Wall Street Journal put out that was talking about that inventory. And in real estate, a balanced market is considered to be achieved when you have about a 6 months worth of supply. What does that mean? That basically means if no new homes got listed at the current pace of sales, it would take 6 months to sell everything that was currently for sale. Now, obviously, the market's fluid. Homes are going on and off the market each and every day. So it's a little bit arbitrary in how that's come up with, but that's the definition of a balanced market, right? So the Wall Street Journal, in their report that they put out, estimates that in the United States as a whole right now, we need about 8 million homes to come on the market to achieve balance. 8 million. Right? That's a lot of property, right? We've been massively underbuilt for years. And I talked about this a few weeks ago in a different blog. So again, click that link and visit the blog and you'll find some interesting information there. So we're seeing a similar pattern from these four experts here as we saw from the big financial institutions just a few weeks ago. And then lastly here, we have Mark Fleming. He's the chief economist at First American. And here's what he had to say. He says, looking back at the bubble years, house prices exceeded house buying power in 2006 nationally. But today, house buying power is nearly twice as high as the median sales price nationally. Many find it hard to believe, but housing is actually undervalued in most markets. And the gap between house buying power and sale prices indicates there's room for further house price growth in the months to come, right? So, again, we've got four industry leaders here, coupled with the fact that, just as I mentioned, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and Merrill Lynch, all of their analysts, all of their departments are saying the exact same thing. So when you start getting all of these think tanks, right, and these industry experts together, and there's a consensus, there really isn't anyone going against that belief that it's supply and demand. Do I believe that we will start to see some more balance in most of the markets? I do. We're already seeing signs of a little bit of a shift, but that shift doesn't mean a bubble's going to burst, and that shift doesn't mean a crash. We are starting to see a little bit more supply come. You're going to get sellers here, they're going to start profit taking, right? And they're going to look at either downsizing or you know moving into another property. So you're going to see more listings start to come onto the market, and the builders are building at a frantic pace. They've been struggling to build more homes due to supply constraints, right? They haven't been able to get the raw materials. The entire industry, all of the factories are gearing back up now that in just about all the country, all the restrictions from COVID are being lifted. So it's taking that mechanism a while to crank back up and put out the supply that we need across the spectrum of all industries. And as that starts to happen, housing included, we will see some stabilization in the market. Those sellers that right now are really shooting for the moon and they've listed their homes way too high, you are going to see those prices come down. But don't confuse that with an underlying trend that air is coming out of a bubble, or that the market is about to crash. There's no signs of that whatsoever. Ultimately, I share this information so that you can make the best decision for you, as that's what's most important. When is the right time to buy? When is the right time to sell? It's when it's the right time to buy or sell for you. And I understand that everyone's situation is unique and different. But if you have any particular questions whatsoever, or you've got a situation you'd like to talk through in more detail, please reach out. I'm always happy to talk that through and share whatever insights I have with you so that you can make that decision that's right for you and your family. Have a great week.